Okay, welcome, everybody. I don't know if you guys saw the weather, but it's looking like we're going to get little winter storm warning action today. So it's going to be a fun one. So here's what we got going on today, folks. We got it is Thursday, January 14th, and we've got a new term quiz coming up next week. Now, I don't know if you've seen the schedule, but we have only got one day next week in which we are meeting. Monday off, Tuesday is even, or excuse me, I should probably pull up that schedule because I don't even remember myself. But so we've got Tuesday here is going to be an odd day, and then Wednesday is going to be an even day. So we'll come back. We'll start off with you guys on Tuesday, and then that'll basically be it for the week. And then you've got conferences on Thursday. Okay. So we're going to do a little upfront reading together, why World War I still matters, why that's still important for us to study. And obviously, you know, with the sheer number of people that died, I think it's important for us to study. But what can we still learn about that? What do we as Americans still need to know about World War I? You've got a little World War I crash course play posit that is now available on Schoology due next week. And then I will stick around here to help out with if you have any questions pertaining to what the heck is happening in the U.S. right now. What is going on at the Capitol? What you know, are we in an impeachment process yet? What's the deal there? What are the ramifications of what's going on? It is kind of amazing that it used to be I felt like an elder statesman because I was because I could say that I lived through an impeachment process back in the Clinton era, and now it's like, wow, you guys I've just got one more on you guys. You've lived through two impeachment processes now. But anyway, we'll get to that here. And if you have any questions about that, we can chat about that at the end of class. So without further ado, let's go to Quizlet.live. Now you'll notice when you get into the Quizlet link, or excuse me, when you get into those terms, you'll be like, whoa, there's a lot of these. Yeah, there are. There's 60 of them, okay? Only 30 of them are going to be on the quiz, though. Only 30 of them are going to be on the quiz. So be warned. No, we don't want gravity. We don't want that. Come on. Okay, here we go. Quizlet.live. We're looking for this code. Quizlet Live doesn't look like it's awake quite yet. Come on. Come on. There we go. And there's your code. 143978. All right, 19 of you in right now. Let's see, we've got 23 that we need. 23. Give you about 30 more seconds to get in here, folks, and then we're going to go. No worries. I can see you there. Okay, here we go. Let's give it a shot. It's going to be this kind of morning, I think, with Quizlet. Come on. Come on. All right, let's give it a shot here. Come on. Come on. Okay, well, I guess it's up to you guys to study those Quizlet terms on your own. I apologize, guys, but it doesn't look like this is going to work today. Isn't that fun? All right. I'm going straight over to the reading that we are doing next here. I apologize, folks, but it doesn't look like Quizlet Live is going to work for us today. Such is life, I guess. So here we go. Right into the reading for today. Why World War I still matters. Why World War I still matters. Millions of people were killed, mighty empires fell, and the globe was remade during World War I. 100 years later, we're still dealing with the consequences. In one moment, the world stopped and began again. On November 11th, 1918, at exactly 11 a.m. Paris time, bells rang and celebrations broke out all over the globe. Oh, by the way, this is under the upfront, I made this available under Schoology, folks. I didn't talk about that, but you could find this right here up front, why World War I still matters, if you want to follow along. Otherwise, if you can see my screen close enough, I suppose that can work too. The timing had been laid out in an armistice, an agreement to stop fighting, written by the war's victors, the Allied powers. Led by France, the United Kingdom, and the United States, the Allies had forced their defeated enemy, Germany, to sign the agreement. That Armistice Day, we celebrate that every year now in what we call Veterans Day. Veterans Day. Okay. If you're ever confused, like which one is in November and which one is in May, you can remember that Memorial Day starts with an M, and that is in May. So Veterans Day is in November. Okay. November 11th. The conflict it ended was so massive, people referred to it simply as the Great War. Up to that point in history, it was the bloodiest war ever. About 20 million people, both soldiers and civilians, were killed. 9 million of those we know as soldiers. France alone lost 1.4 million soldiers in battle, 17% of the country's fighting age men. In the United States, we refer to that as the lost generation. It affects countries for generations, says Doran Cart, senior curator of the National World War I Museum and Memorial in Kansas City, Missouri. It changed the whole outlay of the globe. This November 11th, bells will ring again, will ring around the world to celebrate the 100th anniversary of World War I. Now, this was written 2 years ago, but whatever. The war continues to influence our world. Here are some essential things to know about it. Number one, the war introduced deadly new weapons. The war began in July 1914 as a struggle for power between two groups of European nations, the Allied powers, first led by Russia, France, and the UK, and the Central powers headed by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, centered in what is now Turkey. And folks, everything that you know of in the Middle East essentially was a part of that Ottoman Empire. It was a very vast and diverse empire. And after World War I, Western European countries just said, well, we're going to split you up. And they really never took anything into consideration. So if you ever asked yourself the question, why is there so much conflict in the Middle East? Well, they never really took anything into consideration when they split up and made those countries for them. Few people could have predicted that so many soldiers would be killed. A main reason for the historic loss of life, say experts, was the introduction of deadly new weapons. Among these were machine guns and artillery that could fire more rapidly than before. Tanks, airplanes, and poison gas were also deployed for the first time in World War I. This is a prime example, folks. So for those of you that are really interested, a lot of you did your personalized question about the change in weaponry in the last war. Well, in World War I, this is a prime example of the technology kind of jumping way ahead of the tactics of its time. Okay, millions of people are going to be slaughtered, and there's not going to be much movement at all. For protection, troops on both sides dug long ditches in the ground called trenches, used them to take cover. Soldiers sometimes stayed in them for weeks or months. By the end of 1914, the opposing armies had created an almost unbroken battle line of parallel trenches that stretched from the north coast of Belgium to Switzerland. This 450-mile long line of trenches was called the Western Front. In letters home, soldiers described the brutal reality of life in the trenches. Mud up to their knees, rats as large as cats, wowee, and the horrible smell of overflowing toilets. Ugh, PU. When ordered to attack, soldiers rushed out of their trenches onto open ground. As they charged the opposing trenches, waves of men would be mowed down by enemy fire. Despite the high death count, battles often resulted in little or no gain of territory. Afterward, bodies sometimes remained where they had fallen. There was no safe way to retrieve them. French soldier Louis Barthès recalled stumbling upon a gruesome scene while searching an abandoned enemy trench. I saw a pile of corpses, almost all of them German, that they had started to bury right in the trench. There was no one here but the dead, I exclaimed. Yeesh. Okay. Lesson number 2. The U.S. didn't want to get involved. When the war began, President Woodrow Wilson pledged the United States to neutrality. In fact, he got elected on that campaign promise. But from the start, many Americans felt that the U.S. should fight alongside the UK and France because of our strong historical ties to those nations. Then on May 7, 1915, a German submarine sank a British passenger ship called the Lusitania off the southern coast of Ireland. Among the 1,200 crew members and passengers who died, 128 were Americans. What the Lusitania did was bring the war home to Americans, historian John Cooper has said. Suddenly, that foreign conflict felt like our own. Still, it took nearly 2 more years and the steady worsening of the U.S.-German relationship for America to enter the fight. On April 2nd, 1917, President Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war. The Germans were waging a warfare against mankind, Wilson said. The world must be made safe for democracy. Number 3, U.S. troops helped save the day. In June 1917, American soldiers began arriving in Europe. The people of Britain and France, devastated by years of fighting, cheered the young Americans who marched through the streets on the way to the battlefront. Those fresh U.S. troops helped turn the war around for the Allies. In July 1918, U.S. forces and French troops joined the British and French troops to push back the Germans at the Second Battle of the Marne in France. The battle proved the last major stand for an exhausted Germany. By early November, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, which were fighting the Allies in the war's Eastern Front, had surrendered. Then Germany, the last of the Central Powers, reluctantly agreed to the peace settlement. There would have been no World War II without World War I. Here we go, last 2. World War I remade the globe. The war triggered the collapse of 4 powerful empires. Russia, who is going to basically back out of this war because of their own Bolshevik revolution. So if you ever wondered when Russia turned into the Soviet Union and turned into a communist country, that was when. Austria-Hungary, Germany, and the Ottoman Empire. And I already told you about the Ottoman Empire. These dynasties had been there for centuries, says Michael Nieberg of the U.S. Army War College in Pennsylvania. Now, in 4 years, they were gone. When it was all over, Germany was forced to accept blame for the war, give up about 10% of its territory, and severely reduce its military. The country was also forced to pay the United Nations about $33 billion in damages, those reparations. Wowee. These terms enraged Germans. In 1933, that anger helped fuel Adolf Hitler's rise to power. In part seeking revenge for Germany's humiliation in World War I, Hitler would eventually attempt to conquer Europe, plunging the globe into World War II. Says Cart of the National World War I Museum and Memorial, there would have been no World War II without World War I. The U.S. became a global power. One nation emerged from the war stronger, the U.S. With its industrial might and more than 2 million troops, America proved itself a powerful force and was transformed into a world leader. That was the moment where the U.S. began to get involved in foreign affairs almost everywhere, says Nieberg. Today, however, many Americans question whether the cost of being involved in conflicts around the world is too steep. The Middle East is a prime example of this. Since 2001, nearly 7,000 Americans have died battling terrorists in Afghanistan and Iraq. The U.S. has also been involved in the fighting of the Syrian civil war that began in 2011. Conflicts in all 3 countries show no signs of ending anytime soon. And this was obviously a couple of years ago. Like past presidents, President Trump and his advisors have questioned what to do. What can the U.S. hope to accomplish in foreign wars? Can the world ever be truly made safe for democracy, as Woodrow Wilson vowed? This is a debate that comes directly from World War I, says Nyberg. It's one, he adds, that we may never finish struggling with. And the lessons that we kind of take away from World War I are how not to get involved in these global affairs in which people have all these secret alliances going. If we were in a traditional U.S. history class, we would be playing a game for about 3-4 days, and that game is called diplomacy. And what I really like about that game is that kids get to see how what it was like to be one country and be stabbed in the back by another when you've got all these secret alliances going on. Because at the end of World War I, there's a very famous book called The Guns of August, in which these people came together and they looked at each other and went, "Why did we fight World War I?" And nobody can answer the question. And that wasn't a very comfortable feeling. At the end of the American Civil War, we can say, well, ended slavery. That feel good about that. At the end of World War II, we can look at it and go, ended fascism. That's a pretty good thing. There wasn't that good feeling at the end of World War I. Okay, so we kind of look at it as a historical lesson to take away. So I apologize about not everything working today, folks. But here's what we got. It'll be up to you to kind of review those terms on Quizlet. Hopefully it gets up and running for you. That upfront reading we just did. If you want to see where to find that crash course, that play pause it, I'll show you right now. But here's what you got, folks. So here's that Quizlet link, and hopefully that'll work for you guys. Okay, but under the crash course World War I, play pause it. I want you guys to get going on that. Okay, because here's what you got. I'm going to be later today. I'm going to be putting that Lost Battalion worksheet into the grade book. You've got your World War I quiz coming up next week, and then you also have that World War I crash course play pause it that's going to be due next week. So you've got a fair amount to work on right now. I'll stick around to help out anything that if you have any questions about schoolwork or current events or any of that stuff, I am here for you. So yeah, that will